Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, March 28th, 2025. Time for another show, and I have forgotten to, I don't know where I put my phone, which I'm going to have to locate or have on-staff production assistants find it. That's around here somewhere. I just had it. But it's going to have all the alarms for our breaks. So I'm definitely going to need it. Just the question is, where did I put it? I was in a rush to get to the microphone here. And I've also been fiddling with the levels, because in-house engineering said yesterday that the high-quality copy of the show file, which I think by the time it streams to most of you, you probably didn't notice, there was a sort of an electrical buzz to my microphone the whole time, and I hope we've fixed it. We went through the tried-and-true method of unplugging it and plugging it back in again. But while we were at it, I fiddled with some of the other levels to see if that might help clear things up, and of course, that's never a good idea. So I don't know. This morning, you'll have to tell me, or Justice can tell me how things went on the stream, but it sounded like everything was exploding with, I don't know, everything really blasting out of soundboard. The levels were way up, but I imagine they were probably normal on the other end. They were just, I hope, just a little high in my earphones. But who knows? Okay, well, we'll find out, and let's see. I'm getting what's that? Did you text me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, you're texting to find the phone.
I do not see it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Anyway, levels yesterday on the stream were good. Levels good today, too. I don't know. We'll find this thing, I'm sure. And then, all right, so let's see. The places I would have been, like at the table or the counter. I didn't put it in there. It's not in there.
Yeah. It's not on the table or the counter.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's not so great. Well, all right. I'm sure we'll find it somewhere. The question is, will we find it before 9:27? And will I know that it's 9:27? Well, we'll see how the show goes today. That's a little unusual. I mean, is it around here? Is it next to me and I don't know it?
That's
all right.
I texted to see.
Yeah. All right. Well, no. All right. Well, we're working on it anyway. Let's see. All levels appear to be good and fine today. That's good news. No electronic buzz, I hope, to the voice, although maybe you can't hear it. It might be only in the local recording that we can hear this thing. Okay. So Donald Trump. He's the president of the United States, allegedly, and he's really bad at it, and he's ruining everything. So I had a whole bunch of stories to add to that. And early this morning, as we were getting ready for the show, Scott sent me an update on, and there's plenty of updates all over the place on Signalgate, or whatever the hell we're going to land on calling it. And we mentioned this yesterday, but I guess there's even more reporting. One of the big holes in security for these guys is apparently still their Venmo accounts, which I find difficult to believe. Not that I don't think it's really true. I mean, I just find it difficult to believe that people don't set their settings to private. But thinking about it, I saw this story a couple of days ago. First of all, there was the reporting that Waltz? Yeah, Michael Waltz, who's the National Security Advisor. And again, the second word in that is security, had left his Venmo account open and public, through which enterprising reporters were able to tell that he, I guess, maintains a lot of contacts. And there's nothing unusual about it. I mean, he maintains a lot of contacts with journalists. He's a politician, and now, of course, he's in national security. But still, it's a public-facing a job, and it makes sense that he would have contacts among the journalistic community. Just, I guess what the issue was. Thank you. Any reports on where you might have found this? Like in the garbage or something?
It's right here.
Okay. Yeah. I guess one of the real issues, I guess something I really need to do is buy a fluorescent orange phone case. That would probably solve a lot of my problems. This has happened to me before. Okay. So it was right nearby. It was just, of course, on silent so that you good folks at home wouldn't hear the ringy dingies when the alarm went off. All right. Well, we're regular people here doing this show, as you can tell. So we screw things up. Anyway, I guess that's a good segue. I went to check, and you should go too. Do you have Venmo? I don't know what the default setting is, but go to the privacy settings and make sure you have your account on private. I can't think of any good reason for anybody to keep their Venmo transactions public unless you set it to public briefly so that people, in a larger group who aren't all close friends of yours, if they need to all pay you back for some large endeavor. But then you should set it back to private, I think, pretty immediately because, you can always give a code or your phone number or whatever to somebody, for a one-off transaction. Somebody owes you money. I'll pay you by Venmo. Fine. You don't have to be public to be found. So I don't know what the default setting is. I'd wonder about that. Somebody can go, a default is public? Okay. Well, I'm getting lots of messages. Okay, so hi. Hey, Mom. How you doing? Default setting is public. I must have, read somebody smart telling me, oh, when you sign up for Venmo, make sure you turn your settings to private. Unless I had it as public and then read about Matt Gaetz, who made the same mistake and was, paying young women for sexual liaisons, allegedly, and noting it in the notes as well. And the reporters must have marveled at the fact that his history was public, at which point I said, I wonder if mine is public. Now, there's no reason at all in the world for mine to be public. So I reset it. You should do the same too. If any of you are nominated as National Security Advisor, I would then advise you double check as well. Probably check all your apps. Honestly, who knows why? I don't even know why there is a public setting. That's a dumb thing to even have. I'd be curious to know what they thought that would add to the app. But it's added a lot of fun because now we have been able to comb over the records of, people who get caught red-handed hiring underage girls for parties, like Matt Gaetz. But I guess it's a rampant thing in Florida because a couple districts over, Mike Waltz has also left his public. Nothing quite as revealing there, but I think Wired then followed up and said that they found, a couple of the people on that phone call, the principals who were on that phone call, likewise had left their Venmo accounts open and public, and they combed over them, and I don't think they came up with anything earth-shattering. They were just basically saying, at a certain level, you should probably, think about security, especially if you're in the national security business, and close those accounts down or turn them off, turn off the public access to them. And I guess they never did that. Now, if what I can't find, I'm not sure if what I parked and what I didn't, and I'll comb over it here, but I think there was some Wired reporting. Maybe I even archived it. I think it was the Wired report that mentioned that there were so many journalists in Mike Waltz's accounts, and some other reporting that said, there are multiple members of the administration who likewise have left their Venmo account public. And now the follow-up reporting by Wired is even more Venmo accounts tied to Trump officials in Signal group chat left data public, which is, I guess, ultimately the real problem here. They just keep leaving too much data public, these guys. Wired has found 4 new Venmo accounts that appear to be associated with Trump officials who were in the infamous Signal chat. One made a payment with a note consisting solely of an eggplant emoji. And if that doesn't strike you as odd, one, eggplant is not all that popular as a vegetable. So as I was talking with Scott about it, he's like, I buy my eggplant at Aldi and they don't take Venmo. So, that's not the issue. But if you have younger folks in the house or you're just a tragically hip older person, you've probably run into the oddball offbeat, the off-label usage, let's say, of the eggplant emoji. And you might wonder, again, A, why anybody would use it, and B, why anybody would use it on an account that is public. But apparently one of the reasons you would do it is you're a foolish Republican untouchable, and you think no one will ever find out about it. Or you think you'll get pardoned for anything you do anyway. So, all right, let's see. Brief break for today's mint lemon balm throat soothing tea. Why not? And by the way, this was the brand of this tea. This is another one of the Scott collection here, which I think I mistook for being English in some way because it's tea, and it has a fancy-looking logo for the company that makes it look like one of those companies that has a royal appointment. And they might, but upon closer inspection, it's Canadian, which I think might get me arrested at this stage of the game. I'm not sure about that, but the price will have gone up. I know that much. More on tariffs perhaps later in the show. But for now, a number of top Trump administration officials, including 4 who were on the now infamous Trump Signal chat group. Okay, so this is not great. All right, hold on a second. I got to check in on my messages here, which, I always appreciate the updates. However, it does interrupt the flow of things a little bit. And but this is good because we'll want to give you some sort of reference if you're one of the 6 people listening to the program who is still like, well, what is that eggplant anyway? I don't understand. Well, you could be forgiven for that. There's an explanation, and we can point you to it. And I was planning on doing something like that, but just so that you know that, just to make the situation like less comfortable, I have now been texted a link to the explanation. I don't know, what is it, Wikipedia, explaining the eggplant emoji. And there were a couple listeners to the show that could, make it more uncomfortable, I guess, than most. And it's not my rabbi, so that's good. But it is my mom, which you probably guessed because she's already texting me now. Anyway, so yeah, for those unaware, I don't know, rabbi, maybe, the eggplant emoji is commonly used to represent a penis, yes, in sexting conversations. Where's my censorship horn? There's nothing censoring about penis. That's a medical term. Come on now. Now, it is particularly the case, it notes, in the United States as well as in Canada, which really would just be the United States if we would just get around to annexing Canada already. But the Canadian one has a little maple leaf on the tip of the eggplant. I don't know if you know that. Anyway, there you have it. I suppose that's got a history of its own, but there you go. The point is that Wired has to mention the eggplant in this story. And this is among a collection of people who are supposed to be handling your national security. A number of Trump administration officials, top men and women, including 4 who are now in this Signal chat group, appear to have Venmo accounts that have been leaking data. They have leaky eggplants, these data people, including contacts that they hold and, in some cases, transactions, all being leaked to the public. Experts say this is a potentially serious counterintelligence problem that could allow foreign intelligence services to gain insight into a target's social network or what kind of, Italian food they prefer. Or even identify individuals who could be paid or coerced to act against them. I could be coerced to act against those people, mostly. Not, I don't want to be physically threatening to them, but mostly I oppose them. And you wouldn't have to coerce me a great deal. I think $5 or $10 likely would do it. The officials in question include Dan Katz. By the way, I'll spoil it. That's the eggplant guy. Dan Katz, Chief of Staff at the U.S. Treasury and Eggplant Exchange. Joe Kent, President Trump's nominee for the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. And just to pause for a second here, I don't think I put the article away, but there's a good article somewhere that makes the point that in addition to all the 15 to 35 things that we've found wrong with the Signal chat, one other issue is that Joe Kent is on the discussion, and this is supposed to be, top secret stuff, and it is. And Joe Kent is only the nominee. He has not been confirmed. Apparently, he has to be confirmed by the Senate because he's a director of National Counterterrorism Center, and he's standing in as representative for one of the principals there, I believe. And he's got a history of his own, and we may have gone over just how, noxious a personage he is. But among this group, he's only mildly noxious, I guess. But again, the point is, he's not yet authorized to have access to this information. But then again, neither are most of the people on this group, and nor was Jeffrey Goldberg. But it happened, and Goldberg's not the only one that shouldn't have been included on this, but was. Let's see, who else? Mike Needham, counselor and chief of staff to the Secretary of State. All three of those people, Dan Katz, Joe Kent, Mike Needham, were participants in this thingamabob here, the Houthi PC small group chat, in which sensitive attack plans were discussed, in which Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, was accidentally invited. Katz was named in it as a point of contact by Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. Kent was sent, that rhymes, by Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of the National Intelligence, or the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, and to whom Kent serves as an acting Chief of Staff. Acting! Right, that kind of Chief of Staff. And Needham was sent by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And if they had taken care of business and the principals weren't on the call, that would have been better for most of them. But it didn't happen. They all wasted their time with it. Everybody wanted the tactical information, and that's the problem. A fourth official with an open Venmo account, Brian McCormick, a senior staffer on the National Security Council, also appears to have been in the chat in which a user with the screen name Brian lists McCormick as a point of contact for the NSC. His account went private after Wired reached out to the NSC for comment. The comment was, Mr. McCormick has made necessary Venmo updates for his personal privacy protection. That, according to NSC spokesperson James Hewitt. Although now that I read this through, I'm wondering, was it? Did I mistake it? Was it actually this guy with the eggplant emoji? We'll get to the eggplant soon enough. I mean, and by the way, it's anticlimactic. They're just like, and he used an eggplant. There's no larger story to it that we know yet. Morgan Ortagus, a former Fox News personality and deputy to Steve Witkoff, the guy who was in Moscow in the middle of all this, Donald Trump's special envoy for the Middle East, which does not include Moscow, who was himself in the chat, also appears to have left Venmo data exposed. No pun intended. Wired established that the accounts are almost certainly those of the government officials in question by analyzing the other accounts that they were connected to, and which in the cases of Katz, Kent, and Needham, sounds like a law firm that should be sanctioned by the administration, includes accounts appearing to belong to their spouses. The Treasury Department, the National Counterterrorism Center, and the State Department did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Okay. Some of the information revealed by the accounts is quite granular. McCormick and the accounts that appear to belong to Katz and Ortagus, for example, left not only their contact lists publicly visible, but also their transactions, which are as recent as last autumn. The records reveal specific information like a 2018 payment from Katz with a note, there you go, consisting solely of an eggplant emoji, and how much he paid an overnight cat sitter in 2019, and that's not the same transaction. It was not paying the cat sitter for eggplant activity, but someone else. Although I'd like to know how much was involved in if it says $1.89, I'd say that might be to purchase an eggplant. Whereas, all right. Well, at any rate, They also reveal McCormick's contributions to what appeared to be a get-together for veterans of the Bush-Cheney administration. How do you like that? Cheney team reunion. Thank you, is the note on that one. Who has, these are the members of this, the veterans who had reimbursed Ortega's for picnic expenses. The Cheneys did not pay for the picnic, as it turns out, with their Halliburton millions. And, of course, Cheneys are now persona non grata. So, I don't know. Are they going to fire McCormick? No, because he's probably, now that he's had the picnic and been repaid for it, disavowed the Cheneys, probably, in order to survive in this administration. Anyway, it goes on like this. There's a couple more things of some interest, like this, for instance, Kent's connection to noted conspiracy theorist Ivan Raiklin, who calls himself the Secretary of Retribution. Do you remember this guy? We mentioned him at one point. And once created a deep state target list, but he seems to sort of be floating out there in the ether. I don't think anybody's hired him in this administration, but he floated himself as a person who would be appointed to some sort of government position, like he said, Secretary of Retribution, when Trump started saying on the campaign trail, I'm going to be your retribution. I'll help you with that retribution, but I don't think he's been afforded that opportunity yet. I don't know. So there you go. One of Kent's connections is to Ivan Raiklin. The other, by the way, to Superman, which is interesting, and you never see the two guys in the same place. Wired has previously reported on the partially public Venmo accounts of several of the high-ranking officials in the Houthi PC chat, including J.D. Vance, Mike Waltz, Susie Wiles. Waltz and Wiles set their accounts to private only after Wired reached out to the White House for comment on Wednesday afternoon. So I knew I had seen that reporting earlier. It's probably archived at this point. Venmo did not immediately respond to Wired's request for comment. I don't know what they would tell you. In a statement given, maybe they will answer questions, though, eventually about why there's a public setting at all. Anyway, in a statement given to Wired in response to questions about the Waltz and Wiles accounts, spokesperson Aaron Mackey said, "We take our customers' privacy seriously, which is why we let customers choose their privacy settings on Venmo for both their individual payments and friends list, and we make it incredibly simple for customers to make these private if they choose to do so." That's nice, but yeah, my question is why? Who selects private? There's only ways to make mistakes, as far as I can see. All right, how much more of this stuff is there? Is there anything super revealing in here? Might as well plow through it. From my perspective as a veteran, everyone is entitled to use their applications and services they feel are necessary to live their lives, said Tara Lemieux, a 35-year veteran of the U.S. intelligence community, including the National Security Agency, Department of Homeland Security, and supporting agencies. That said, when you post anything in a third-party application and you don't understand how that information can be shared or exploited, you're taking a risk for our nation, and that's not acceptable. For Lemieux, while public transactions on Venmo might appear harmless, foreign intelligence services, particularly signals intelligence agencies, look for patterns. Who's paying whom, how often, and when? Say they're making payments to their children. Now you have a point of leverage. If there's someone out there looking to target you, they can use that information and start making you feel fearful for the safety of your children, Lemieux says. Yes, good point. The speed of the digital world has outpaced our ability to keep a handle on it, she adds. If you have all this information out there, how the heck are you going to put toothpaste back in the tube? Mike Yeagley, a specialist in commercial data and its security risks, has spent over 15 years advising the U.S. Department of Defense on how both allies and adversaries leverage what he calls digital exhaust, the seemingly mundane details, social connections, service transactions, and metadata trails left behind in everyday apps. At the highest level of our national security leadership, regardless of administration, there's been an awareness of our data and what we project, that can be discoverable, he says. What's the risk of someone at the cabinet level using Venmo to pay their personal trainer? On the surface, it doesn't look like much, Yeagley says, but now I know who that trainer is, or the gardener, or whoever, and suddenly I've expanded my ability to target by identifying the people around that official. That's a good point, right? You can plant if it's hard to plant the listening device in the home of the Secretary of State or National Security Advisor, and it should be, what if it's less difficult to put it in the equipment of their gardener, personal trainer, housekeeper, whatever, who's going to carry that in with them? If you're a spy, you might want to do it. Yeagley adds that our adversaries are sophisticated and carnivorous in their data collection, which means just the smallest bit of daylight is of interest to someone sophisticated. They'll use that data point and build from it. According to Venmo, its contact syncing feature allows users to upload phone contacts to the app. Oh, do opt not to do that. So that they can find people they know. Why? If you find people you need to pay or collect money from. That's all. And you know what? If you don't know who the people are that owe you money, you should be out of business. Anyway, when those exposed Venmo accounts were set up, all before 2020, the app would display a prompt allowing users to sync their phone contacts, automatically populating their friends list with anyone in their address book already using the platform. Venmo says this functionality was deprecated? Okay. More than 2 years ago. Today, contact syncing is no longer creates connections by default. To add someone as a friend, users have to search for them, send a request, and have it accepted. Smarter. Nevertheless, according to Venmo's privacy policy, unless users proactively change their privacy settings, their network remains visible to anyone. I knew that. My mom told me. Anyway, that means that even when a user sets their account to private, their friends list remains visible unless they take that additional step. So go do that. As of publication, which was yesterday, hiding your connections requires navigating to settings and then go to privacy and then go to friends list and select private. Go do that right now, unless you're listening to the podcast, in which case, when you hear this, which for all intents and purposes for you is right now, time travel. It's very difficult. And by the way, you can't even like deal with time as a linear function on a live stream / podcast. I don't know how they're going to get time travel right. That may just be an impossibility. We can talk about that in the next hour of the show. Let's take a break, clear the throat, make sure the microphones are working, down the rest of this tea, and come right back with more, collapse of the national security state.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Time to move on to other subjects, including, did we get mention of this on the air at some point in the last couple of days? I think, possibly. But I guess word comes down now. Elise Stefanik, who had been nominated by Trump to be ambassador to the UN, which I'm sure he'd rather close anyway or kick out of the United States. Not a super high-ranking official, I'm sure, in Trump's mind. But anyway, he gave that job to Elise Stefanik, who never resigned from the House in order to accept this appointment. They haven't had her confirmation hearing yet, and they were basically saying our Republican majority in the House is so narrow, and we're constantly in such danger of losing key votes, that you have to stay there until we've settled the other outstanding vacancies, like, for instance, the two in Florida where Mike Waltz left and then immediately got himself in trouble. But even faster, Matt Gaetz left and immediately got himself in trouble. And so those two vacancies, I think both to be settled next Tuesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day, if you can believe it. And the timing is fantastic on, it's about as good as it's going to get. These are extremely Republican seats, but one to be in the middle of the rolling Trump disaster and even Republican voters being perturbed all over the country, not the ultra MAGAs, but, enough Republican voters to possibly make a difference, angry about Elon Musk and everything that he's doing and all the power he's usurping in the country and the things he's doing with it. People being fired willy-nilly, rehired, ordered rehired by the courts being defied, whatever. Anyway, and then for Mike Waltz himself to have been caught up in scandal like Matt Gaetz, well, it's going to make things difficult for them. Although I don't hear any reports, oddly enough. I guess that's part of the timing issue. In Matt Gaetz's old district, I haven't heard any reports out of there that the race is tight there. And it's hard to believe that even reports of the race being tight in Mike Waltz's district. But Waltz is now in the news for his own scandal. Like if we could renew the Gaetz scandal, that might be helpful. Pretty, in the next couple of minutes. But anyway, Elise Stefanik was stuck in the House, and the plan was, well, if we can fill these 2 seats down in Florida, then that gives us room for you to accept your appointment to the United Nations, and then we can kick off that vacancy, and there could be a special election for that. That, too, is a pretty safely Republican seat, usually. She won pretty handily. But, they didn't want to have all those vacancies at once. Anyway, although the vacancies will be settled shortly in Florida, one, I guess they must be a little worried about how they're going, both in light of the way other special elections have been going, like the 2 in Pennsylvania, although those are state-level elections. And just generally, though, the polling that Greg's been sharing with us, all of the troubles of the administration, self-imposed, of course, self-inflicted wounds, but costing Trump and Republicans generally at the polls, makes them a little jittery. And so now, it turns out, she will not be taking over as UN ambassador. The whole thing's been pulled, which was really rather amazing. I have a report on it from The Hill, which... Actually, I parked here yesterday as right after the show, so maybe we did mention it, but parked it here, and it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's still titled, Stefanik nomination for UN ambassador faces fresh uncertainty. That's one way of putting it. Elise Stefanik's nomination to serve as ambassador to the United Nations is facing fresh uncertainty as the Trump administration weighs the risks of further whittling down the Republican majority in the House. A source familiar with the matter said the situation was fluid and that no decisions had been made about whether to pull Stefanik's nomination or have her withdraw. That was pretty interesting way of putting it. Oh, no decisions have been made. Oh, really? Okay, so she might still be ambassador to the UN. Well, if you read closely, we haven't made a decision as to whether to pull the nomination or have her withdraw. But it sounds like the decision, in fact, has been made. And it was. Before long, the story had shifted to, did I save this anywhere? There was, essentially, Trump announced that her nomination was being withdrawn on Truth Social. And I don't know whether he consulted with her about it at all before making this, but that won't matter in his mind. He doesn't care one way or another. But I wonder whether, did I repost this thing somewhere? I usually don't traffic in what he's doing with Truth Social, but this one was kind of funny, so maybe I did. But, he doesn't trash her or anything. But here it is. Yeah, Aaron Rupar had this screenshot. Trump announces that Elise Stefanik is staying in Congress. And here's the... I don't know. Am I up for doing this in Trump voice? I don't know. As we advance our America First agenda, and I have the scratchy throat thing going on now from the campaign trail, it is essential that we maintain every Republican seat in Congress. We must be unified to accomplish our mission, and Elise Stefanik has been a vital part of our efforts from the very beginning. I don't know. It's garbage. So, I don't know whether we want to pollute the airwaves with it. there's regular stuff. Oh, we love tax cuts. Jobs are great. Record economic growth, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is he goes on to say, with a very tight majority, I don't want to take a chance on anyone else running for Elise's seat. The people love Elise, and with her, we have nothing to worry about come election day. There are others that can do a good job at the United Nations. That's so nice. Therefore, Elise will stay in Congress, rejoin the House leadership team, asterisk. We'll come back to that. And continue to fight for our amazing American people. Speaker Johnson is thrilled. I look forward to the day when Elise is able to join my administration in the future. She's absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Elise. Okay, so, boilerplate. She's needs to spend more time with her congressional family, essentially. But, she'll rejoin the leadership. Keep in mind, please, Elise Stefanik, here's your everything Trump touches dies moment. Elise Stefanik didn't resign her seat in Congress, but she stepped aside out of leadership in order to, in anticipation of this. This was a done deal, right? She was, House Republican Conference leader, I think, chair of the House Republican Conference, whatever they call the title now, which is like fourth ranking in the leadership. Liz Cheney's old job. Yeah, we're boot Liz Cheney out of that job and then boot Liz Cheney out of Congress, and then she took that job. But, to the extent that Liz Cheney was considered a leader in the House Republican Conference, Stefanik was going to take that spot. It's a serious position. So she stepped down. They voted and elected somebody else. There's no vacancy in the House leadership. But she gave it up in anticipation of taking this nomination. She didn't, it was understood that she was going to remain in Congress for a little while longer because they had to, make sure they had enough votes to get themselves covered. But she also apparently, I hadn't verified this independently, but I did see somebody say in passing somewhere, she's gotten no, at least subcommittee assignments in this. I guess she's got a committee seat or two somewhere. Keep herself busy while she's hanging around, but she doesn't have any subcommittees where the real work is very often being done. And they can remedy that easily enough, but, or she may not care. I don't know. But the question of putting her in, they're going to have to invent a job if they intend to put her back in leadership. And now she's going to try and exercise some muscle with this and say, you heard the man. I need a leadership position. He said I would rejoin leadership, but I don't know. I don't know how thrilled Speaker Johnson actually is about any of this. And two, I'm sure he's not particularly thrilled at having to try and find a spot in leadership. It's not that hard. They've done it in the past. Democrats have certainly done it in the past, and you can make something up, whatever. Chief of staff to the majority leader or something. I don't know. They could make something up for her. A better title than that. Oh, the Bluebird is back. Anyway, so that's just funny in general that she gave up this position and then didn't get the cabinet. This is a cabinet level appointment, and it didn't happen. And what would be hilarious, of course, is if she, in fact, it would be very funny if she had resigned from Congress and didn't get the job. But she'll stay there. And it will be really funny if they also don't come up with anything for her in leadership. So anyway, that's kind of weird. I did get this note here from our online Blue Sky friend and listener to the program, apparently, Adkaratic, who says that her district, New York 21, is not as red as people think. And that's usually the case. But in this case, the Republicans have been dithering about a potential nominee with maybe a three-way race, while the Dems coalesced around Blake. Is it Gendebine or Gendebine? Do I have it at all close? Gendebien. You need to know how to spell it in order to go on there and either send them money via Venmo, which you could do. I don't think you can do political contributions that way, but You can buy them fresh fruits and vegetables, probably. But if you, of course, Act Blue, if you're looking to make a contribution, Gendebien, Blake is his first name. His? Oh, maybe I'm assuming too much about that one. We can look it up. And at any rate, Adcratic will probably tell us all about that. But, okay, it's not, nothing in New York is overwhelmingly Republican, really. So that's always good news. But I'm sure it's a better bet to hold the seat for Republicans if she's there and running again. But yeah, I guess that's questionable too. How many of the people who have been knocking their heads against the wall trying to become the Republican frontrunner are going to want to drop out now? A lot of people probably think it's hopeless, but a lot of them are like, well, I've sunk a lot into this. I'm going to run. Maybe I'm more MAGA than she is, and who knows? We'll see how that goes. But it was certainly fun to see, a Trump sycophant be stabbed in the face, not in the back, on Truth Social, and then find out that, it's not going to happen. On top of that, I also saw shared here. Let me see. This one I think I did pocket. See if I can find it and open it up here. Josh Marshall had the eyes on this one. Where he grabbed this from, I don't know. One of the political publications out there. He didn't provide the link. But his comment here, oh dear, I wasn't kidding about the sorrows of poor Elise here. All I have from the screen grab that he picked up is that Trump is nervous about the implication here is Trump is nervous about a Trump plus 20 district. It may not be all that Republican, but it's very heavily Trumpy anyway. But some bullet points here, one of which is circled. He also must reintegrate Stefanik, who was planning to bolt town next week. I guess she thought she was really going to get her confirmation sometime soon. But it says that he has to reintegrate her into a leadership lineup that's full. As I said, they did elect somebody else, and I don't remember who the hell the new conference chairperson is. But if you go to, we'll do it, Elise Stefanik and her Wikipedia entry, and then you can look and see what she was the chair of the House Republican Conference. Lisa McClain is her successor from Michigan. And, it'll be interesting to see. Trump made a promise, wrote a check that he can't cash there, made a promise that she was going to be reintegrated into leadership. I'm sure that's what he'd like to see so that Stefanik isn't mad at him, but I don't know how hard he's going to work to make it happen. I don't think we're in a position here where, I don't know anything about Lisa McClain, but is she the kind of person that Trump could call her on the phone and say, you need to resign as conference chairperson, we'll find you something else, and let Elise have it back, or whether they'll just say, fine, make something new for Stefanik. But the thing that Josh Marshall circulated also said, this is the important point here, circled in red, Stefanik was crushed and scrambled to reverse Trump's decision before he announced it on Truth Social, according to people familiar with the matter. So she didn't find out about it via Truth Social. That's something. But she found out it was going to come, and she tried to, persuade him otherwise. Don't make the announcement. Let's see if we can work something else out. She really wanted to. That's a prestige job. And yeah, she knew I'm out of the leadership here. I don't know that we're going to be able to shoehorn me in, and I don't want a made-up job either. But too bad. I guess that's what you have coming to you. And I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny and worth noting. More chaos in Trump world. And everything Trump touches dies, and I hope you enjoyed feeding your face to the leopard. Okay. A couple of other fun things to share, and more or less at random. There are many. Okay. So this one we have, that one we've done, that one we've done. These are all about Elise Stefanik. I guess I had a lot of information about that one. I guess another aspect of the Signalgate situation that struck me was I saw somebody posting this thing and made a comment on it too. This is I thought another angle from which we might attack this, but Franklin Leonard was who's on Blue Sky, and who's Franklin? Let's find out a little bit more about Franklin Leonard here. Franklin Leonard, the Blacklist founder. How do you like that for social media? The what used to, I guess, be sort of Black Twitter now has moved to Black Blue Sky, but that's kind of clunky, so I don't know. But the Blacklist founder, film and TV producer, probably more prominently, and a politics and football person, and a Vanity Fair contributing editor, if that helps contextualize for you. I didn't know Franklin beforehand, but he made the interesting observation with some, a little video gif from The Apprentice, I guess. I don't recognize this particular clip, but anyway, he notes shambolic work from the White House comms department, not gathering everyone on the Signal group chat and broadcasting it like the final segment of a special episode of The Apprentice, which I guess he was, it does say here, to make the point a bit more directly in another post here, no chance you don't get fired on The Apprentice for accidentally CCing your opponent on your plans for the challenge, right? You get the context in which he's bringing this up. And they really could have done something extraordinary with it. I was saying that for Trump to treat the Signal Gate story as anything but an opportunity for him to do, to make this into a, heads are gonna roll kind of thing is perhaps one, the most obvious sign of how fake The Apprentice and the Apprentice persona always was, and we know about that. Not only that he's not actually particularly good at business, but yet they made him look that way, but that there was an active decision to turn this from a spoof of Donald Trump into a serious profile of Donald Trump. But anyway, here he has been handed a situation in which he can, be the tough as nails boss, and he fumbles it. This is an extraordinarily weak thing, right? Like he literally could have invited cameras in to I'm sure he could have announced the outcome of the thing beforehand, but then still have the cameras in and have a thing in the Oval Office or at the cabinet, in the cabinet room at the table, and bring in all the participants of the Signal chat and say, somebody's got to take responsibility for this thing, and I've made a decision. Drag it out for a commercial break and everything, right? But to announce who's going to go down for Signalgate. We all have our suspicions about who it's going to be. But this way, he could have, cemented in the public mind, there is one and only one person needs to pay the price for this. Now, there's several people who should lose their jobs over this. Everybody, all the principals really should be fired for this extraordinary breach. And we've shown how many different mistakes have been made, not just the accidental adding of the journalist, for which Waltz should go down, but the agreement of everybody else to participate in such a thing. And, of course, then the decisions to furnish the discussion with highly classified material, for which Hegseth should go down. But, the fact that Tulsi Gabbard and Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance and the rest of them don't say, this is not the proper venue for a discussion like this. We should absolutely not be discussing this here. Well, that's not going to happen because they've all been instructed to use Signal to avoid, again, we've heard that, avoid monitoring and avoid archiving of their discussions. Yes, that's also true. But again, in the national security context, like I said, it's probably safer. You got better protection from disclosure, legal disclosure, by using the real channels than you do. It's almost certainly true for any criminal planning elsewhere. But anyway, nobody says we shouldn't be doing this or let's go to the skiff or anything like that. And although it's, I guess, unlikely that you'd be firing the vice president about this, everybody should be in trouble. But if you wanted to just say, all right, well, I can't fire two people because it's too much. I got to find new nominees and it's going to make me look worse. I'm going to fire one person. I'm going to make it look like it's their fault. If I have to fire 2, 3, 4 people, it looks like I'm bad at hiring. So this was a golden opportunity for him to frame this thing and to do it TV style. It would be terrible precedent to set, and Democrats and you and I would be going crazy. He still thinks he's on a reality show. He's out of his mind. This is not the way you run the presidency. But for his fans, it would have been huge. But again, this is the persona he's supposed to have. You're fired, tough as nails boss, accepts no, I don't take any guff about, you execute or you're out of here, And as it turns out, we knew this from his first administration. He loved to have the tagline that you're fired persona, but he would never do it. Or when he did fire people, he would do it via social media. And when he wasn't face to face with them, the whole climactic episode thing of the face-to-face you're fired is just not in him. This is another great example of just how, in fact, he's a pushover and a weak and a wimpy guy when it comes to this stuff. It's a different category of pushover. It's not because he's a nice guy and he doesn't like doing, the necessary firing, but he is just generally indecisive and cowardly, even though somehow he's managed to play this into, no, I'm tough and decisive. And it's quite the opposite. But here it is. And he looks super weak and feeble and old and out of touch. Everybody, including the Barstool schmo that we were talking about yesterday. And by the way, if you didn't listen to his 6-minute political rant, you could be forgiven for not listening for 6 minutes. But it is actually quite revealing listening to this kind of the kind of guy who's like, listen, I don't like politics. I hate it. I want to just watch sports and drink beer. But this is terrible. This is so obvious that there's something wrong here and that people have to go, and he's not doing it. It does make Trump look weak. And they really haven't factored that in. And I hope they don't, because I hope it gets dragged out and more people come to realize, and they can secretly whisper among themselves at actual bar stools, the old man has lost it. There's more to that, I guess, that we might be able to share. Let's make that a theme as we move on to, let's see. I saw Steve Bannon over at the Maddow blog making this a similar point, and we'll let him in to help us reinforce it. President Bystander, as he calls him. Trump appears out of the loop in his own White House. Loopy as he is, he appears to be out of the loop. Confronted with key questions about life or death issues, the president is offering the public a lot of shrugged shoulders and blank stares. Good point. And, not what people voted for. The details are still coming into focus, but the publicly available information is clearly alarming. This about something else that we haven't even talked about this. I think Justice covered it the other day, and we have not done this. And maybe it was partially because stuff was just still unclear, but there were so many other crazy things happening. Thank you, Steve Bannon, for reminding me. It's not just Signalgate that the old man is out of touch and lost about, but we're talking about here publicly available information being clearly alarming, and yet nothing appears to have penetrated Trump's head on 4 U.S. soldiers who were conducting tactical training who recently went missing while training in Lithuania. The Associated Press reported the U.S. Army said the Hercules armored vehicle that the 4 U.S. soldiers were in during a training exercise has been found submerged in a body of water, and yet they haven't been found, apparently. It said recovery efforts were underway by U.S. Army and Lithuanian armed forces and civilian agencies. Now, this was published yesterday. The news, I guess, had broken the day before, and like I said, I haven't been keeping up to speed on this one. But that was a developing situation. I know that there was a message yesterday that the nature of the search had gone from a search like we might still find them to a recovery effort, meaning I guess that they were thought to be dead. That was, ABC News reporting that 20 hours ago. Search for 4 missing U.S. soldiers, now a recovery mission. The more recent report here, 12 hours ago from Fox News, saying Lithuanian and Polish troops aid in search and recovery for 4 missing U.S. soldiers from Fort Stewart. So I don't really know exactly what the most up-to-date information is on this, but most of the country probably doesn't either. And part of the reason for that is they asked the president, hey, what about these what about support the troops, right? But as we know, they're suckers and losers. He knows nothing about it. Like, that would have been, Republicans would have been through the roof had, I know it's an old adage now. Well, imagine Barack Obama, right? He gets questioned about it. There are four presumed dead U.S. soldiers. What do you have to say about that? I don't know. I didn't see that. Was it on the Guerrilla Channel? Like, they'd never abide by this. They'd never stand for it. All right. So, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, I'm sure it's pronounced something along those lines, initially said the American troops had perished in the incident, though he soon after clarified that the search is ongoing. And as if this weren't serious enough, there's also the relevance of the location. The exercise was conducted at a training ground roughly 6 miles from the border with Belarus. And Belarus is closely aligned with Vladimir Putin's Russia. Given all of this, it stands to reason that Donald Trump would be, up to speed on the details and the status of the search for the American service members. He is, after all, you might recall, President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief of its armed forces. And yet, HuffPost noted, Donald Trump appeared unaware on Wednesday that 4 U.S. soldiers had gone missing during a NATO training exercise in Lithuania. I was aware, we just didn't talk about it on the show, but I'm not president. Anyway, when asked by a reporter if he had been briefed on the situation that began to unfurl hours before, the president replied, "No, I haven't." And he didn't elaborate. In fact, the president simply moved on to another question. That's, again, during one of the Oval Office blather fests that they like to keep him busy with on the daily. To be sure, it's difficult to know whether Trump was telling the truth. Perhaps he had been briefed, but chose to lie about his knowledge of the incident. But taken at face value, 4 U.S. troops went missing roughly 6 miles from a Russia-aligned country, and the American president was left totally in the dark about the state of the efforts to find them. Around the same time, the Republican, that's Trump, was also asked about the Signal Group chat scandal and whether he believed classified information was shared. "I don't know," he replied. "I'm not sure. You'd have to ask the various people involved." All right, way to stay on top of it, Grandpa. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on, well, you know where you are, Netroots Radio. Okay, let's get back to what Steve Bannon was telling us about how out of touch Trump appears to be, and I guess actually is. Not only not aware of what was going on with the soldiers missing in Lithuania, but seemingly unaware, really, of, or unwilling to admit that he was aware of what was going on in Signalgate. But we don't know. We don't know how out of it he really is. It's difficult to tell with him. The comments came after the public saw the details of the online chat, which included a message from Trump's vice president, J.D. Vance, telling the White House National Security Team that he wasn't sure the president is aware how inconsistent the proposed strike in Yemen was with his message on Europe, which, who knows whether he is or isn't aware of these things. But you have the vice president acknowledging in here, we don't know how aware he is of anything, really. And by the way, one of the, so far, at least on this show, under-discussed, but not out there in the world under-discussed, aspects of Signalgate. But one thing we really should be bringing up here is how revealing it seems to be that there's discussion not only of this strike going on, but then when J.D. Vance pushes back and says, I'm not sure we should necessarily be doing it. Does everybody agree that this is something we should be doing? And there's discussion that makes it questionable about how involved is Trump in the decision making, or does he say, I don't want to make I don't want all the details about this. You guys work it out. If you think there should be an airstrike, I authorize it. Go ahead. I think that might actually be sort of the way he's running things. That he's basically saying, I'll leave it up to you, but I know technically you need presidential authority to launch a military strike. Here's some authority. wherever you think it should be used and whatever reason you think you should do it. Or maybe he says, well, just tell me where, and I'll say, yeah, okay, for Yemen, it's a yes. Go ahead and do it. You make the decision about whether the timing is right or the weather is right, because I don't know, and I don't care, and I'm going to play golf. I think that's kind of the way he's doing it, but this raises the possibility that Stephen Miller is like unilaterally making targeting decisions, and he's the one that pushes back in this Signal chat and says, well, my understanding, and that's not really a great way of saying it, my takeaway, my read of what the president said is that this is a go. A green light. Yar! Tactical. Right? It's whatever. We're cleared for action. Rawr. And it's not clear that the president has ever done or said anything of the sort. But, if you ask him about it, he'll say, of course, do I want to drop bombs on some brown people? Yes, of course. I don't care where it is. So it's a little worrisome. It's the whole undercurrent of, we don't know whether the commander-in-chief knows where he's bombing anymore. And he might have just handed it to this lunatic, what's his name? Stephen Miller.
Bald asshole.
Exactly. That's the guy I was thinking of. Anyway, the comments came. Did we do this one? Yeah, right. The comments came after all of this, and J.D. Vance pushed back. And then in the same text chain featured the White House's Stephen Miller, adding in an apparent reference to the attack plan. As I heard it, this is an interesting way of putting it. As I heard it, the president was clear. Green light. Well, maybe. Maybe not. What if it was, no, red light? Well, I'm going to tell everybody green light, because he'll never remember whether he said red light or not. Red light, green light. The problem should be obvious. Vance was uncertain about Trump's knowledge of the relevant details. And one of the president's right-hand loyalists added an as I heard it qualifier to the commander-in-chief's directive about deadly military operations abroad. Taken together, it's difficult not to wonder just how out of the loop the president is in his own White House. 5 years ago this month, as the severity of the pandemic came into focus, the New York Times published a memorable analysis linked herein that included a word to describe Trump that stood out for me as significant: bystander. And so he revives it in the title here, right? While he presents himself as the nation's commanding figure, Mr. Trump has essentially become a bystander. As school superintendents, sports commissioners, remember President Basketball, college presidents, who he's having fired left and right, governors and business owners across the country take it upon themselves to shut down much of American life without clear guidance from the president, the Times explained. And maybe there's something to that. College presidents. Maybe that is in part why they've been so frequently targeted. They target them for other things because it would be unseemly to say, we're firing you because you were responsible during the pandemic and I was not, and that makes it look like I'm not a responsible guy. And I want to look that way. And though I can't look that way because I refuse to take responsibility for anything, I can get rid of you so that there aren't very many people around with whom I could be compared, and you would see that I'm irresponsible. Maybe. Anyway, a half decade later, it appears President Bystander has returned. President Basketball has not, by the way. Trump has taken a keen interest in playing golf, renaming the Gulf of Mexico, banning paper straws, watching an enormous amount of television, and helping steer the Kennedy Center. But on life or death issues, he's offering the public a lot of shrugged shoulders and blank stares. For a president who's heavily invested in the idea that his immediate predecessor had no idea what was going on around him, Trump's apparent cluelessness should be a serious problem. But guess who's not interested in dementia and feebleness in office anymore? Yeah, all of Steve's colleagues in the media. For some strange reason, that's no longer of interest to them. All right, other angles on this. This I thought was of some interest here. Saw it circulated on Blue Sky. Seth Maskett. Many of you will recognize Seth's name. Political scientist and director of the Center on American Politics at the University of Denver. It is reported here in his Substack. Yeah, I think it is Substack. Yep, Substack profile here. Anyway, he writes under this headline, what Trump values in his appointees. And I think you can all guess, but I think an interesting take on why that's necessary to discuss once again. What is it? It's loyalty. The subheader says Trump will defend people who appear strong and loyal to him. That characteristic, it's a weakness. That's a good point. And it's ironic and strange. Well, I like people who appear strong. Well, that's actually a weakness of yours. How so? The details of the Signal scandal continue to go from extremely bad to far, far worse, with a link here to another story, with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and others insisting they did nothing wrong, and further revelations from The Atlantic demonstrating that they did a lot wrong. By the way, what's the linked article? I thought it was of some interest when I saw it this morning. New York Times piece in which the headline is, Trump calls Signal leak fallout a what? A witch hunt. It's like he couldn't even come up with a new term for it. Same thing. Russia, Russia, Russia. It's all a hoax. It's a witch hunt. Well, what about this one? That is also a witch hunt. Why are they always hunting for witches? I don't know. They love witches. What can I tell you? Might be worth looking through that piece from a couple of days ago. We missed that one in our roundup, but I think I don't know if there's any new revelations in it. But anyway, Seth is pointing to that one as being evidence of things going from extremely bad to far, far worse. And what seems clear to just about everyone, probably even most of the folks on that Signal chat, is that this was a huge and simple screw-up. And I mean, it's simple enough that even the Barstool guy gets it, right? And what's nice about huge and simple screw-ups is that they don't have to destroy the rest of your administration. You can just fire a few people. And I think if you staged it right, just one, I would say, and get back to work. Well, get back to whatever it is you're doing, I guess. But Trump likely won't do that, and we have a great parallel for that in his defense of Brett Kavanaugh in 2018. He seems determined to tough it out on a lot of these things, and sometimes it works. As Trump has been very clear about over the past year, the main traits on which he hires cabinet officials and White House staff are loyalty and an appearance of strength, and of course central casting, that kind of appearance, but an appearance of, quote, strength. He feels that he was betrayed in dozens of ways by members of the deep state during his first term, when in fact it was actually members of his own cabinet, but okay. And he wants to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But an obsession with strength and loyalty carries two particular downsides. One, it means he's not hiring with expertise or skill as his first qualification, which is how he ended up with a cabinet populated by people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, but also his first cabinet, his first administration, also terrible. And two, it means that as long as those people are demonstrating strength and loyalty to Trump, he won't remove them, even to the point where it's harming him, his administration, and his party. As long as complaints about Pete Hegseth, Mike Waltz, and others are coming from Democrats and the news media, Trump will see that as business as usual. He knows those people hate him, and he doesn't take their concerns as serious or sincere. Indeed, their attacks only fill him with resolve to stand firm. So, I mean, in demonstrating strength, he actually gives evidence of considerable weakness. The Kavanaugh nomination stands as a useful prior example. When Justice Anthony Kennedy stepped down, Trump nominated Kavanaugh, likely without knowing all that much about him, except that he was in good standing with the right, generally, and with the Federalist Society specifically. But then Christine Blasey Ford came forward to testify that Kavanaugh assaulted her in high school. For many White Houses, that would be enough to cut and run. There are plenty of credentialed conservative potential court nominees out there, and there's no sense wasting political capital and getting attacked for insensitivity to sexual assault victims for weeks, when you could just cut this one loose and pick a new one. Hell, Ronald Reagan went through 3 nominees before he was able to get to Anthony Kennedy on the court in the first place. But Kavanaugh being attacked by people that Trump hates, and especially to be attacked for sexual assault allegations, meant that Trump was going to dig in. And Kavanaugh seemed enthusiastic about playing along as well. Trump, quote, won on that one, but it was a costly win and it didn't need to be. People like Hegseth, Waltz, John Ratcliffe, and others have learned these lessons. They know that as long as they don't demonstrate what Trump views as weakness, that would be apologizing, admitting wrongdoing, etc., and continue to praise Trump, he'll stand by them, and he'll stand by them even if it imposes costs to his party. Republican members of Congress are clearly uncomfortable with this scandal and would far rather be focusing on their party's congressional agenda. This is an unwelcome distraction for them in an already difficult political environment, and it's undermining the majority's powers. Right now, the Senate Intelligence Committee is conducting hearings so that Republicans can highlight what they see as threats from around the world. But it seems like the minority Democrats are all getting the media attention as they grill national security leaders, right? In case you had the impression, wow, well, how did Democrats manage to get all of the people involved in the Signal chat in front of an investigative committee to be dressed down? They must have more power to do this stuff from the minority than we think. And the answer is, no, I think this is the answer. This stuff was pre-scheduled, normal, regular, routine oversight of the intelligence community's operations and for purposes of budgeting for the forthcoming fiscal year, but general regular oversight that Republicans meant to be, tell us about what you see as the threats from around the world. And you gather your national intelligence team here. And as just so happens that these guys had just done something incredibly dumb all together and in one place because they assembled the national security team in Signal rather than in a skiff. So there was this to talk about. They were supposed to be talking. The Republicans had called this hearing. It wasn't Democrats that forced it. Oh, Republicans saying, I'm so embarrassed. Normally I would cover this up, but I'm so embarrassed by this whole thing. I got to call them in here and try to do damage control. They were there for a completely different reason. Democrats hijacked the reason, rightfully, and good job. They didn't have to do this. They might have wimped out on it. But this wasn't the case of leveraging the widespread infamy of this incident and embarrassing Republicans into agreeing to call these people before the committee. That's not how it happened, I don't think. Anyway, again, this scandal would likely evaporate if, say, Hegseth and Waltz, at the insistence of the White House, announced that they're resigning immediately. That's what would happen in almost any other administration. Kids, I just wanted to point that out to you. But they know the rules of the Trump administration. They'll keep their jobs as long as they demonstrate strength and loyalty. I don't pretend to know what will actually happen here, Seth concludes. I can imagine that if enough Republicans and members of Congress told Trump that this scandal is harming his agenda, he might be willing to make a shift. Matt Gaetz's withdrawal from his nomination to be Attorney General is a rare example of the Trump team taking a loss and not whining about it all that much. But his MO is clearly to stick with his team, even if it's hurting him. And again, I suggest that the way out is to stage something goofy and stupid so that we all talk about how goofy and stupid his methodology is, but I bet it would allow him to contain the firings to just one. Not because it made any sense or that it cured the problem or anything like that, but because everybody knows when I do one of these apprentice things, one person gets fired. And America, Barstool America is attuned to seeing a situation that I engineered this way to look like The Apprentice is going to result in one firing and one firing only. And they'll all be satisfied that there's one and one only. That'll help me limit the damage. I think they're absolutely right in suggesting that this could have been stage managed. As dumb as it is, that's an option that's available to him that isn't available to most other presidents. Okay, I want to note, at least in passing, and I think I probably won't read this one on the air, but it might make good weekend reading. Hillary Clinton has something to say about all of this stuff, and she has some experience with this. She has a opinion guest essay in the New York Times about it, and you might want to give it a look. Hillary Clinton, this is the headline, because she's the one speaking here. Hillary Clinton, how much dumber will this get? It's been entertaining to see some, this is like loosen the tongues of a lot of Democrats and put them in attack mode here. I put aside at some point in pocket, and I might as well mention it so that I can clear it out of here too, but Tammy Duckworth put out a statement on this whole thing in which I believe she drops an F-bomb somewhere in there, and it was really kind of fun to see that this was being done at all. And I think then I saw somebody comment the other day, like, I think, one of the reporters saying, I think this might be the first time I've ever seen a sitting member of Congress do it quite that way. And to drop the F-bomb in an official release of some kind. Here it is on Blue Sky. Tammy Duckworth using her official duckworth.senate.gov handle to post this on Blue Sky. Pete Hegseth is and as she puts it, F asterisk CKING. So he uses the CK in all of this. So, Pete Hegseth is a fucking liar. This is so, but again, what is he? He's an effing liar. Wow. Pete Hegseth. This is Secretary of Defense. A sitting senator says Pete Hegseth is an effing liar. This is so clearly classified information he recklessly leaked that could have gotten our pilots killed. He needs to resign in disgrace immediately. Okay. That's unusual. Just the note that there's an F-bomb in an official account usage of Blue Sky here. I don't know if it's in a press release that it was, printed up and handed out in the press gallery or not, but there you have it. And of course, liar in there as well. Don't forget that part. And yes, that too is the general direction that these accusations are now going, is that, and the Trump administration is trying to say, well, no pilots were killed, so no harm, no foul is essentially their excuse. But the real national security types are saying, yeah, releasing this information, targeting information released ahead of the strike while there's planes in the air, any looser, and this information could have gotten into the hands of the Houthis, who presumably, fire Stinger missiles. So I don't know at what range the bombs were dropped, and it might have been cruise missiles and smart bombs, and it might have been that there's nothing that would have put any of these pilots within range of the weapons that the Houthis have at the ready. Although they do have, long enough range missiles that they're able to apparently strike southern Israel from Yemen. But yeah, sophisticated targeting of advanced fighters, I don't know. But the point is that the relative safety of executing the mission for American troops here, American air power, is, well, in addition to the advanced nature of our fighters and the fact that we don't have to get all that close to do these strikes, we keep people in the dark about it. It would take extraordinary luck or precision in planning or advanced knowledge of the strikes in order for you to have any hope of putting our pilots in danger. So here's some hope that you might be able to put our pilots in danger. So, that too, not great. All right, so there was that, the Tammy Duckworth F-bomb. Hillary Clinton going, with the somewhat more mild, this is very dumb. I'll give you a sense of how it's going here in the opening paragraph. It's not the hypocrisy that bothers me. It's the stupidity. Though, we're all here for the hypocrisy on this one, too, because of the nature of the But Her Emails campaign of 2016. We're all shocked that President Trump and his team don't actually care about protecting classified information or federal record retention laws. But we knew that already. What's much worse is that top Trump administration officials put our troops in jeopardy by sharing military plans on a commercial messaging app and unwittingly invited a journalist into the chat. That's dangerous, and it's just dumb. This is the latest in a string of self-inflicted wounds by the new administration that are squandering America's strength and threatening our national security, firing hundreds of federal workers charged with protecting the nation's nuclear weapons, also dumb. So is shutting down efforts to fight pandemics, just as a deadly Ebola outbreak is spreading in Africa, and bird flu, and measles, and tuberculosis, I should add. It makes no sense to purge talented generals, diplomats, and spies at a time when rivals like China and Russia are trying to expand their global reach. You get the idea? She's taking it very seriously. But, yeah, dumb, 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 and dumb. There's another example here. She explains basically the ridiculousness of doing this in the face of a complex and dangerous world. But focusing on specifics here, she says, let's start with the military because that's what he claims to care about. He doesn't. Don't let the swagger fool you. Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth of group chat fame are apparently more focused on performative fights over wokeness than preparing for real fights with America's adversaries. Does anyone really think deleting tributes to the Tuskegee Airmen, for instance, makes us more safe? The Trump Pentagon purged images of the plane that dropped the atomic bomb that ended World War II because its name is the Enola Gay. Dumb. True. Instead of working with Congress to modernize the military's budget or reflect changing threats, the president is firing top generals without credible justification. 5 former secretaries of defense, Republicans and Democrats, rightly warned that this would undermine our all-volunteer force and weaken our national security. Right? Dumb, 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 dumb. And lots of examples of dumb. Anyway, it's just fun to see Hillary Clinton say, outright dumb. Not quite as much fun as, effing liar, of course. But it is, after all, a New York Times editorial or opinion column. So might be something you want to spend some time with today or over the weekend. You'll find it fun and informative, I'm sure. Coming up on the next break, so I don't want to get into anything too super long, but there are a lot of other things to cover here, and I don't know, they are all long. What can we do that will fit in? Nothing, basically, is going to fit in here. Oh, well, here's a bit of celebrity gossip. That might fit in here. Why the hell do we even care about this? I'm not really sure. But here's some information. I think when we spoke the other day, I don't know, it's probably a couple weeks now, when Trump was supposedly buying the Tesla and said that he had bought a Cybertruck for his granddaughter, Kai. Is that right? Kai. And I found it difficult to believe that a teenage girl would be interested in a Cybertruck. But you never know. I guess she's Trumpy, right? Well, anyway, there's some more sort of information that led off of that. So what's up? Who is Kai? Kai is Don Jr.'s daughter with his ex-wife, his first wife, Vanessa Trump. And Vanessa is the one you might remember from years back who got engaged to Don Jr. with a ring that had been gifted to Don Jr. by a jeweler in the Short Hills Mall in New Jersey. In exchange for the publicity of getting Don Jr. to make his marriage proposal at the mall in front of the store, and he agreed to do it, which is probably why he's divorced now. But there you have it. You remember, we told this story, if longtime listeners will probably remember, oh yeah, God, one of the smarmiest Trump stories around. Well, anyway, they're divorced, as you know. And then he started going out with Kim Guilfoyle, and then that's over. And now he has a new, I don't remember who, celebrity girlfriend of some. I don't know who he's on to now. It doesn't matter. I hate that guy. Everybody does. What was of some interest is, I guess, stemming from the Kai thing. Did you know that Vanessa Woods? There you go. I give it away. Vanessa Trump is going out with Tiger Woods right now. I did not know that, and it's okay. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Why not? Go for it. I just thought it was very interesting. And now that it sort of explains, maybe, kind of, sort of, I don't know what predates what, but Tiger Woods, too, is a bit Trumpy and shows up every once in a while and plays golf with Trump, which was going to happen anyway because golf. But I wonder whether he does that frequently or whether he'll do it again. Now, like, will Don Jr. say, don't play golf with Tiger Woods. He's going out with Vanessa. I don't know. Anyway, as it turns out, Tiger's son, what's his name? Charlie, right? No surprise, an accomplished golfer, but also Sam. Sam and Charlie are Woods' two kids, and they go to the same school as Kai Trump. So I guess, maybe they met at a PTA meeting or something like that. I have no idea. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting, but I don't know. Maybe not. But it did lead to, hey, Vanessa Woods is actually kind of an interesting figure in her own right. Not necessarily in a great way, but whatever. She's led a life. We'll say that, and I meant to fit this in before the break. Let's make it after the break. It's worth knowing. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. By the way, just checking up on a couple of things and some other directions I wanted to go. Tammy Duckworth's actual press release on Pete Hegseth mirrors the same language. You got the F***CKING liar right in the official release, just, clearing that one up in case you had any doubt about how she was doing it. But as I said, in the probably not going to make your top line news stories, and it's one of the services we bring you here, bringing you the insignificant news that, gives color to the rest of the stuff. Like, we could be spending all day on Trump's latest executive orders, which are very serious and far-reaching and overreaching and stupid and have no legal foundation, but similar to every other such executive order. So we really kind of have to wait to digest and see where it goes. But yes, overreaching in several different directions, including trying to dismantle union protections for any federal workers that still may remain. Something about the structure of the Smithsonian, that too much Smithsonian stuff is woke. We got to get rid of some of these dumb things and clean out our museums from the woke mind virus and the DEI, and not stuff normally that presidents involve themselves in, but so what? And not something he has any direct control over, but so what? In terms of what does he care? Whether he has real control over those things or not. I'm going to make problems in those areas. And, the more outrageous and the more stupid and the bigger power grab that each of these things is, the better for him. Today should be pretty wild as he gets set once again, I'm sure, to jet off and play golf in Florida. That means there'll be some more press availability, not just the Oval Office spray that he usually does, but his walk to the helicopter, which usually lately, between the helicopter stop and then the plane ride down on Air Force One, the airport, the journalists are there, and he comes out and he says stuff. I'm going to invade Lesotho. We're going to conquer the moon. Whatever. He's going to, we're going to change that from green cheese to red cheese because red MAGA, whatever. And the dumber it is, the better because then people will be talking about that instead of Signalgate or whatever's. But he doesn't need to be distracting from anything to just spend his time pronouncing stupid things. So anyway, the point is no one is going to rein him in. So we'll spend, we'll get that news. You won't get it, you'll get it here eventually. We'll be talking about it on Monday, I'm sure, with Greg. But you'll have heard it. But you might not have heard this. So anyway, I don't know. This grew out of my interest in what was going on with Kai and the possibility she really did have a Cybertruck. Maybe. Anyway, Tiger Woods confirms his relationship with Vanessa Trump in a social media post. This is from March, last Sunday. I don't know. Kind of interesting. I found it on CNN. It's an AP piece. It's short, and and everybody's entitled to. There's nothing illegal going on here. I just thought it was weird, and helped fill in some of the blanks. Tiger Woods has confirmed his relationship with the former daughter-in-law of President Donald Trump, publishing 2 images to social media and a post that said, "Love is in the air." Doon 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 doon. Love is in the air. All right, just a little Australian music scene tune there. All right. Woods and Vanessa Trump, who was married to Donald Trump Jr., had been seen at Torrey Pines in San Diego along with her daughter, Kai, when Woods arrived for the final round to hand out the trophy to the winner of the Genesis Invitational. He is that tournament's host. Kai Trump goes to the Benjamin School, which I don't know anything about it. Is it nice? I don't know. Is it all about the Benjamins there? Maybe. With Woods' 2 children, Sam and Charlie. Charlie, I believe, is the up-and-coming golfer. Sam, I don't know, may also be a highly competent. For all I know, a better golfer than Charlie. It's not like I follow the Woods kids and their golf careers, but I think I've heard mentioned somewhere along the line. Charlie, real promising. Was it because he's only now catching up to Sam, or Sam doesn't have any interest in golfing, or I don't know, but it's a separate story. But she and Charlie, Kai and Charlie, have competed on an invitation. Is that right? On an invitation at a high-profile junior golf tournament this week. Okay, so the 2 of them, Trump did mention Kai as an accomplished golfer as well. Love is in the air, it says here, and life is better with you by my side. We look forward to our journey through life together. I mean, that's serious. Woods said on X, where he has 6.4 million followers, and here is the embedded tweet, and there's a side-by-side photo that could be just, hey, I just met Tiger Woods, but it's also side-by-side with another photo of them relaxing on a hammock or a couch or something somewhere with Vanessa kind of, just nice and cozy draped over him. It's very nice. Anyway, he added, at this time, we would appreciate privacy for all those close to our hearts. But I guess they figured they had to acknowledge that it was better to do that than let rumors circulate. Might as well, people will be less interested in the rumors if they acknowledge this thing. And we are. One photo shows Woods and Vanessa Trump posing together, another with them lying in a hammock with her arm draped across his chest as he gazes skyward, or we guess as much because he's wearing sunglasses. Woods and Vanessa Trump had been featured in gossip outlets for the last several weeks. She was married to Donald Trump Jr. for 12 years. They have 5 children together. Woods announced March 11th that he ruptured his left Achilles tendon, knocking him out of the Masters and likely for the rest of the year. It was not clear what prompted Woods, who keeps his personal life fiercely private, to publish photos confirming the relationship. It was reminiscent of 2013 when he and Lindsey Vonn both posted photos of them together to confirm that they were dating. Woods said at the time he and Vonn, quote, wanted to limit the stalkerazzi and all those sleazy websites that are out there following us, saying it could lead to dangerous situations involving his children. He also said their photos would devalue anything the paparazzi had. Woods has 2 children from his marriage to Ellen Nordegren, who divorced him in 2010 after he had been exposed for multiple extramarital affairs. Oops. Anyway, his only other public relationship was with Erica Herman, which lasted about 7 years. Time is really flying here. Until it ended in October of 2022. A messy split, lawsuit, yada, yada. That's not all particularly relevant. Anyway, so this is happening. Although then I saw, who cares, right? saw somebody commenting on Blue Sky. Actually, you know, Vanessa might be the most interesting part of this relationship, and maybe the most interesting Trump orbit person. Who's this? Razball. I don't know Razball, but Razball's out there on Blue Sky and says Tiger Woods' new girlfriend's wiki dating section, first of all, she has one, should be dating itself Mark Wahlberg's wiki hate crime section. That is to say, there are a number of entries. She's, you know, an interesting person. But get this, you know, for what it's worth. During her teenage years, Vanessa dated local street gangster Valentin Rivera, a member of the violent gang, the Latin Kings. I don't know whether that guy's headed to El Salvador anytime soon, but okay. In 1998, Vanessa was linked with American actor Leonardo DiCaprio. All right. From 1998 to 2001, Vanessa dated Saudi Prince Khalid bin Bandar bin Sultan Al Saud. Wow. That relationship ended in 2001 when Khalid bin Bandar left the United States. Do you remember why? It was after his Saudi ambassador father, Bandar bin Sultan Al Saud, was suspected of having indirect ties to individuals linked with the Al-Qaeda hijackers. You remember the secret flights, right? All planes grounded except the Saudi princes who are fleeing the United States immediately in the wake of 9/11. So, yeah, just pointing this out. So he's interesting choice. Date a member of the, I don't know how high ranking, a member of the Latin Kings, and then Leonardo DiCaprio. How do you upgrade from that? How about a Saudi prince? Okay. How did that end? 9/11 and he fled. Well, that must have been something. But, you know, time goes on. And on November 12, 2005, Vanessa married Donald Trump Jr. Now, that is some record, right? I don't know, I don't know how exclusive things are with Valentin Rivera, whatever, back in the day, but that's an interesting entry. Leonardo DiCaprio, a Saudi prince. Well, how about Donald Trump Jr.? In 2005, that was probably a pretty lucrative franchise. You may recall that, as we have said, the wedding was held at Mar-a-Lago Club in Florida, the sex club, makes sense. The service was officiated by Trump Jr.'s aunt, as some people say, or aunt, as I say from the Northeast. Who's that? Judge Marion Trump Barry. Remember her? I've got another entry in the pocket about her. By the way, Trump Jr. had proposed to her with a $100,000 ring, equivalent now to about $161,000. They helpfully note that he had received as a gift from a jeweler in exchange for proposing to her in front of paparazzi outside of the jeweler's store at the Short Hills Mall in New Jersey. Because class and true love. I found that interesting. And I guess it probably should have been assigned to her at that time. Like, I don't know, I could have Leonardo DiCaprio, could have a Saudi prince. I thought this was a good recovery here, Trump Jr. But I heard that they were filthy rich. But one, my ring is only worth $100,000. Why not $1 million? And two, he didn't even buy it. Man, I don't know. Well, so that marriage ended in disaster. But we did get the Cybertruck driving, maybe, Kai out of the whole deal. Doesn't make any sense to the rest of us, but apparently maybe they thought they did well there. I don't know, just weird. I'm sure it was ultimately a waste of time, but, we need a little fluff from time to time because everything else sucks. So what else can I add to I don't think I want to do any more Signal Gate stuff here, though there is more. I mentioned Marion Trump Barry being, I think I put this aside somewhere, but now in the, flood of information. Basically, I'll tell you that the story was that in the judicial review of Trump's interpretation, there it is. Forbes magazine has got it. I finally got you. Here we go. Let's see if I can open it up and whether or not it's paywalled. It doesn't really matter if it is because the gist of it is in the headline. Trump's sister, Marion Trump Barry, declared the immigration law that he has been using to deport people to El Salvador, the Alien Enemies Act, unconstitutional at some point. Now, she's passed away, I believe, but she's certainly no longer on the bench, I think, although maybe Elon Musk will find out she's still getting checks. I don't know. Stuart Anderson wrote this for Forbes magazine. The basics of it is, in an historical twist, Donald Trump's sister was the federal judge who ruled unconstitutional the immigration law that the Trump administration is using to deport a pro-Palestinian protester. Oh, okay. Not the El Salvador folks, but I think we're still stuck on the same terrible law. But just to clear things up, in case I misrepresented them, we'll read on. In 1996, U.S. District Judge Marion Trump Barry wrote an opinion that declared unconstitutional the part of U.S. immigration law that Donald Trump had promised to continue employing to deport protesters. The current case has captured headlines and will test the Trump administration's immigration authority. On March 8th, 2025, Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested Mahmoud Khalil, of course, the lawful permanent resident and pro-Palestinian protester who graduated in December from Columbia University. Controversy over the arrest surrounded the Trump administration using a provision in immigration law that allows for deportation if the Secretary of State believes an alien's presence or activities, quote, would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. So it's in fact, I guess, the provision of law, not the Alien Enemies Act per se, I got that wrong, but the law that purportedly entitles the Secretary of State to make personal and direct determinations that named individuals, continued presence in the United States is contrary to American foreign policy or national security interests or both, and so therefore that they should be ejected. In 1995, Secretary of State Warren Christopher used the same authority when attempting to deport Ruiz Massieu to Mexico. Don't remember anything about that case, but as presented by court documents, the circumstances in that case were quite different from the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil. In September of 1994, Ruiz Massieu's brother, a prominent member of the PRI, I have a voice in my head going along with PRI, the Mexican ruling party, Ruiz Massieu's brother, a prominent member of the PRI, was assassinated. As Deputy Attorney General Ruiz Massieu investigated and identified a PRI official, Manuel Munoz Roca, as the lead conspirator in his brother's killing. Roca was protected first by official immunity and later by disappearing before an interview could be conducted. In late November 1994, Massieu resigned in a public speech and later published a book criticizing the PRI. After Mexican officials sought his arrest, he entered the United States legally as a visitor. He owned property in Texas, as it turns out, and he flew to Spain with a stopover at Newark Airport. In Newark, he was arrested for declaring only $18,000 of the apparently $44,000 plus in cash with him. While the declaration infraction was later dropped, the Mexican government charged him with crimes against the administration of justice and sought his extradition. The U.S. government failed 4 times to convince a judge that Massieu should be extradited to Mexico. The Mexican government showed that Massieu had $9 million in a bank account in Houston, but could not prove that it had been illegally obtained. It was then, however, that this case took a turn toward the truly Kafkaesque, wrote District Judge Marion Trump Barry, Donald Trump's sister. She notes that the Immigration and Naturalization Service took Massieu into custody. He was ordered to show cause as to why he should not be deported, because the Secretary of State has made a determination that there is reasonable ground to believe that his presence or activities in the United States would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. In 1996, the provision, never mind the designation of which provision, but anyway, it was later redesignated, as it turns out anyhow. The language in both designations is identical. And on February 28th, 1996, Judge Trump Barry issued an opinion declaring unconstitutional the provision in the law now being used in the deportation of Mahmoud Khalil. He's being held in a detention facility in Louisiana. Don't know whether that's still the case. I forget where we are with that one. But notwithstanding the political branch's near plenary power over aliens, this power is circumscribed by the constitutional restraints imposed on the exercise of all governmental authority, she wrote in her opinion in Massieu versus Reno. Remember Janet Reno? It is a fundamental tenet of the law in this area that both the 5th and 14th Amendments, remember when we had those, protect aliens from the deprivation of life, liberty, and property without due process of law. Attorneys today have used similar language to challenge her brother's immigration policies. So very interesting. And a longer and detailed article, and there's much to it, but it would eat up the rest of the show. Again, I recommend perhaps you want to take a look at that one over the weekend. It will, it's not going to change how Donald Trump approaches immigration by any stretch. Might not even change how judges approach his approach to immigration. But I thought it was an interesting and fun fact that we could use to build off of the fact that Marion Trump Barry was mentioned in the Tiger Woods article as having married Don Jr. and Vanessa. What a storied career Vanessa has had, let's say. All right. Other information. What's most critical to feed to you prior to the weekend? I don't know. This one's been waiting for a while. Is this? Yeah, okay. This is current. I don't know. In the pocket version, it gave a wild date for this article, and I was like, wait a minute, how old is this thing? But no, it's current. Associated Press article carried by ABC News, March 24th of this year. Just got to throw this one out there. I guess along with the other commentary I've been throwing out there in the last couple hours, there were like 3 or 4 things that I read, and maybe I should start with some of those, on Blue Sky that prompted me to trot out the old line that I append to these things. Political union with Russia, right? Political union with Russia. Remember to own the globalists. What's happening? I think the first of the ones that I noticed was this mention from Mark Chadbourn. Mark Chadbourn, Sunday Times bestselling author, a TV screenwriter, journalist at the New European, the Guardian, and the Times, and the Economist, and et cetera, et cetera. Mark pointing out that one Ksenia Petrova, the spelling is wild, Ksenia, Ksenia Petrova, a Russian scientist at Harvard Medical School, was detained at Logan Airport after returning from France and sent to an ICE detention center in Louisiana, the insider reports. I don't know which insider, but it made me say at first, what? Now we're grabbing Russians? But I thought that Trump loves the Russian folks at this point, right? So why grab her? But then I was like, okay, a Russian scientist at Harvard Medical School. Are we really enforcing visas against even the Russians? I thought we loved them now. Well, the issue is that Professor, let's say, Professor, is she a professor? Scientist at Harvard, who knows? But she, Petrova, is a big critic of Putin's and the war in Ukraine. And now she may find herself deported to Russia, where, they'll have a window waiting for her, unfortunately. And that's worrisome, and it shouldn't be happening. But why are we picking her up and returning her to Russia or threatening her with this? Because political union with Russia, to own the globalists. And there were a couple such things, including also, actually, this is a story that we really should be raising your awareness of, because I haven't been watching it. But did I pocket something about this? But Will Stancil was discussing this, and I know some of you, you might have your differences with him, but he was pointing this out. I don't know where this is from, but I guess there's a new deal on the table. It's just that, Ukraine doesn't really consider itself to be at this table. But The Trump administration is floating what they say is a new deal that they're going to try and force on Ukraine about the minerals. They're back with that thing. And this one is so outrageous and exploitative. I can't imagine that the Ukrainians are entertaining it unless under extreme duress, because it's just a straight up like division of Poland, Hitler von Ribbentrop, or whatever it was. What was it? Why am I thinking of it that? What names were associated with it? The division of Poland. Do I have that wrong? Why am I thinking of von Ribbentrop? Anyway, dang. What can I tell you? Maybe he engineered that deal too, but the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. So I'm like, well, Hitler, of course, was the same country as von Ribbentrop. So why would they have a pact? Now they may have had a pact, but it wasn't about Poland. But okay, so the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact, which I guess underwrote the division of Poland, among other things, Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Anyway, that wasn't what I wanted to tell you. What I did want to mention was that we're now proposing the division of Ukraine, essentially, without their consent. And of course, Will Stansel commenting on this thing. Look, there's no reason to beat around the bush on this. It helps us make the point quickly. Trump's Ukraine plan is literally just to make Ukraine an American colony. He's trying to divide up the country with Russia, like Germany did with Poland. Here's the screen grab of I don't know what that he took to explain what was going on. The draft deal marks a dramatic escalation of Trump's administration's efforts to seize control of Ukraine's lucrative natural resources as it presses to bring the conflict to an end. It would apply to all mineral resources, including oil and gas, and major energy assets across the entire Ukrainian territory. Washington is demanding that Ukraine and the U.S. set up a supervisory board to oversee a joint investment fund, as he's putting it here, to split the income from Ukraine's oil, gas, and mineral projects between the two countries, i.e. Ukraine and U.S., apparently, but also to split the country itself and just give Russia whatever it's conquered, it keeps, and the rest of it, all the wealth of it, goes to the United States. Sure, yeah, totally makes sense. The U.S. would appoint 3 of the 5 board members, giving Washington full veto power over the fund. The draft also says that the contributions to the United States following the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022 would be deemed as contributions to the partnership. So that's why we have a vested interest in sucking out all of the mineral value of Ukraine. Why? Because we gave you some weapons to defend yourself before. All that stuff we already gave you, sunk costs, but why don't we just credit it towards, us owning all your minerals? What? No. They'll just say no to this, right? I don't know. You think they want to, but it's just hard to know what position they now find themselves in. Anyway, that wasn't actually the story I meant to tell you, but I really do need to enter that one onto the record. We got to watch that one develop. I'll have time only basically to give you a headline and a quick couple of paragraphs from this that I've been saving since the 24th. Austria. Remember them? They're another country. Austria says it has uncovered a Russian-steered campaign to spread disinformation. Oh, I can't believe it. And now you see why I've been waiting on this one. Kind of not news. But Austrian authorities say they've uncovered a Russia-steered campaign aimed at spreading disinformation about Ukraine, following the detention in December of a Bulgarian woman who had been accused of spying for Russia. Let's give you a couple paragraphs before it's time to go. Austrian authorities said on Monday that they'd uncovered a Russia-steered campaign, again, over and over again, at spreading disinformation about Ukraine following this detention. Austria's domestic intelligence agency unearthed evidence of the operation as it analyzed devices found in a search of the woman's home. The Interior Ministry had said, and in their statement, it said the investigation showed that a few weeks after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, there's another mention of that, a cell working for Russian intelligence was set up and planned a large-scale disinformation campaign in German-speaking countries, particularly Austria. The group was active online, but also used stickers and graffiti with such content as far-right symbols and nationalist statements meant to look like pro-Ukrainian activists were responsible for them, according to the Interior Ministry. The Bulgarian suspect, whose name wasn't released, got to protect the Bulgarians, is believed to have played a significant role in the effort and acted as an intelligence contact, the ministry said, adding that she admitted working for the cell, particularly in 2022. A year ago, Austria's biggest espionage scandal in decades erupted with the arrest of a former Austrian intelligence officer who was accused, among other things, of handing over cell phone data of former high-ranking Austrian officials to Russian intelligence and helping plot a burglary at a prominent journalist's apartment. Very interesting, but kind of an interesting parallel, I think, to, Signalgate right now. What was she handing over? Cell phone data of former high-ranking Austrian officials. Why? So they could tap into what they're saying to one another. The ex-officer, who was later released from custody, is suspected of having provided sensitive information to Jan Marsalek, a fugitive fellow Austrian, wanted on suspicion of fraud since the collapse in 2020 of German payment company Wirecard. I don't know anything about that one. Where he was the chief operating officer. The arrest warrant said chat messages, provided by British authorities, linked Marsalek directly to Russia's FSB intelligence agency. All right, that's actually a quick enough read of a short blurb on this whole thing, just to put that on the record. I don't know, just another example of similar stuff, but I guess the idea there might have been the disinformation, and interestingly that they were, why target specifically German-speaking countries? I think this may have been part of the effort to pretend that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was about denazifying Ukraine, that Ukraine had gone Nazi, right? And I guess they thought that they would find a particularly receptive audience of that in German-speaking countries. Just a little weird, just something to consider.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Yeah, maybe the more concerning of those things you think you ought to study over the weekend is the deal that's supposedly on the tip. It's a crazy ass overreach. I mean, I think it'll be rejected out of hand, but they're going to spend the weekend telling you that a deal is at hand and they expect signature on it next week. I don't think so. Justice Putnam takes you into the weekend next.